The first thing the little snowflake felt was not the gentle cold breeze of his cloud, but a strange and wonderful warmth. He had tumbled from the winter sky, dancing on a current of air that felt like a soft summer sigh, and he had landed with the quietest of plops right in the middle of a place that was entirely new. He had a name, this little snowflake, a name given to him by the whispering winds. He was called Frosty. And Frosty, for the very first time, felt different. All around him, the world was not the soft white and cool blue he knew. It was a dazzling explosion of color and heat. He found himself perched upon the wide, waxy leaf of a great palm tree, looking out at a place of golden sand and sparkling blue water. This was the oasis of Frost, a name he would soon learn, a secret cool place in the heart of a vast desert. But to Frosty, it just felt warm, and he felt very, very alone. Frosty looked at his own delicate crystal arms, each one a perfect, intricate pattern of frozen starlight. Then he looked at the grainy golden sand below. He was not grainy. He looked at the tall, rough brown trunk of the palm tree. He was not rough or brown. He looked at the still, deep blue water of the oasis pool. He was not deep blue. A small shiver of loneliness ran through his icy form. He was the only one of his kind here. He was different, and different felt very lonely indeed. Just then, Frosty heard a soft, snuffling sound. It was a sad, grumbly sort of sound. Peering over the edge of his leaf, he saw a small creature with a long, furry tail and bright, curious eyes. This was Squeaky, the ground squirrel. Squeaky was trying to reach a big, round, delicious-looking date that had fallen from the palm tree and rolled right into a narrow, rocky crack in the ground. Squeaky's little paws were too wide to fit into the crack. He pushed and he pulled, he grunted and he groaned, but the date was stuck fast. Squeaky let out a little whimper of disappointment, his whiskers drooping. He was so hot and so thirsty, and that date was so juicy and sweet. Frosty felt a pang of sadness for the little squirrel. He wanted to help, but what could a tiny, lonely snowflake do? He was so small and so cold. Surely the squirrel would not want his help. Frosty was just too different. But then a gentle breeze, the same one that had carried him here, rustled through the palm leaves. It seemed to whisper a question, not with words, but with a feeling. It asked Frosty if he knew what made him special. Frosty wasn't sure. The breeze rustled again, and this time it carried a new sound. A slow, rhythmic plink, plink, plink. It was the sound of a single drop of water falling from a leaf into the pool below. And Frosty had a tiny, glimmering idea. He was not just different. He was cold. And in this warm, sunny place, being cold could be very, very useful. Frosty took a deep, icy breath, which was quite a thing for a snowflake to do, and let himself tumble from his leaf. He drifted down, 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 landing right on the hot rock next to the stuck date. The rock was so warm it made his edges tingle. Squeaky the squirrel jumped back in surprise, his eyes wide. He had never seen a snowflake before. He chittered in a high, curious tone, asking this strange, cold, starry creature what it was and what it was doing. Frosty, of course, could not speak in words, but he could show what he could do. He pressed his cold, cold body against the sun-baked rock right where the date was stuck. The intense heat of the rock began to melt Frosty just a little bit, but as it did, something magical happened. The rock itself, right where Frosty lay, grew cooler. Frosty was changing the world around him, just by being himself. He was using his difference to make a difference. Squeaky watched, his curiosity turning to amazement. He tentatively reached his paw into the crack. The rock was still warm, but right near the date, it was much, much cooler. It was not burning hot anymore. With a determined squeak, Squeaky shoved his paw deep into the crack, grabbed the date, and pulled it out. He had done it! He held the prize in his paws. He was so happy he did a little joyful dance right there on the sand. He turned to Frosty, chittering excitedly with gratitude. He wasn't scared of this different creature anymore. He was thankful. Squeaky nudged the date toward Frosty, offering to share. But Frosty, being a snowflake, did not eat dates. He simply enjoyed the feeling of helping. Squeaky understood. He nodded his furry little head and scampered off, but not before looking back at Frosty with a new look in his eyes. It was a look of friendship. Frosty felt a new feeling inside, a feeling that was warm but didn't make him melt. It was the feeling of being useful. But his journey was only just beginning. The warm breeze picked up again, and it carried a new sound to Frosty's senses. It was a faint, weak buzzing sound. It was the sound of a bee in trouble. Frosty let the breeze carry him across the oasis, over the cool blue water, until he landed on the petal of a bright orange desert flower. And there he saw Buzzy, the little bee. Buzzy had been flying for so long, gathering pollen under the hot sun, that she was completely exhausted. Her wings felt heavy and too warm to flap properly. She lay on the flower petal, buzzing softly and sadly. She was too hot and too tired to fly back to her hive. She needed to cool down. Can you feel your own skin? Is it warm from playing outside? Imagine how poor Buzzy the bee felt, her tiny body overheating from her hard work. How could Frosty possibly help someone so small? Frosty remembered what happened with the rock. He knew he was cold. He knew he could make things cooler. But Buzzy was so delicate. He had to be very careful. He gently, ever so gently, drifted from the petal and landed right next to Buzzy on the broad face of the flower. Buzzy stopped her weak buzzing for a moment, sensing a new presence. She turned her head and saw the glittering cold snowflake. Frosty didn't move. He just lay there, letting his natural coolness radiate out from him. He created a tiny, tiny spot of refreshing cold right there on the sun-warmed flower. Buzzy felt the wonderful cool sensation. It was like a sip of cold water on a hot day. Slowly, carefully, she crawled closer to Frosty. She nestled right next to his icy crystal arms. Her buzzing changed from a sad, tired sound to a soft, contented hum. The coolness was reviving her. It was giving her strength. Frosty stayed perfectly still, even as the sun's warmth made him shimmer. He was getting a little smaller, but he didn't mind. He was helping. After a few minutes, Buzzy's wings stopped trembling. They felt light and strong again. She gave her wings an experimental buzz, a strong and healthy sound this time. She turned to Frosty and buzzed a happy, grateful tune. It was a tune that said thank you. She then lifted into the air, did 3 happy loops around Frosty's head, and flew off strongly towards her hive, her mission complete. She had been helped by someone who was completely different from her, and that difference had saved her day. Frosty watched her go, feeling that warm, happy feeling grow even stronger inside. He had helped 2 creatures who were nothing like him. But the biggest challenge was still to come. The sun was climbing higher in the sky, and the oasis, though cool, was growing warmer. Frosty was starting to feel it. He needed to find a cooler place to rest. He let the breeze carry him toward the shade of a large, smooth rock near the water's edge. But as he got closer, he saw a sight that made his icy heart feel heavy. There, sitting by the water with his head in his hands, was a tortoise. This was Grumblefoot, the oldest creature in the oasis. And Grumblefoot was very, very sad. He was crying big, slow tears that rolled down his leathery cheeks and into the sand. In front of him was his favorite thing in the whole world, a beautiful, smooth piece of green sea glass that he used as a mirror to see the sky. But it had fallen and now had a large, jagged crack right down its middle. Whenever Grumblefoot looked into it, his reflection was all broken and crooked. It made him feel broken and crooked too. He didn't feel like wise old Grumblefoot anymore. He just felt old and sad. Frosty landed softly on the rock beside the tortoise. Grumblefoot looked up, his old wise eyes blinking away tears. He saw the snowflake and was too sad to even be surprised. He gave a slow, sad sigh, his breath warm on Frosty's delicate form. He mumbled in a low, rumbly voice that his mirror was broken and that nothing could ever fix it. Frosty looked at the broken glass. He looked at the sad tortoise. He looked at his own delicate, crystalline arms. And he had his biggest idea yet. He was different from the rock, different from the squirrel, different from the bee, and different from the tortoise. But he was also different from the glass. He was not smooth and solid. He was made of countless tiny, intricate crystals. And he knew that sometimes something broken can be made into something new and even more beautiful. It just takes a different way of looking at things. Frosty knew the sun was warm and he was growing smaller. He had to work quickly. He pushed himself with all his might toward the cracked glass. He pressed his cold, cold body right against the jagged crack. The heat of the sun and the rock began to melt Frosty faster than ever before. But as he melted, he didn't just disappear. His melting, icy cold water did something magical. It trickled into the crack in the glass. And then, because Frosty was so very cold, that water began to freeze again, right inside the crack. Grumblefoot watched, his tears stopping as his curiosity grew. The little snowflake was melting away. But as he melted, his icy essence was filling the crack in the glass. The water froze, and where there was once a jagged, broken line, there was now a beautiful, glittering vein of ice that caught the sunlight and sparkled like 1,000 tiny diamonds. The crack was still there, but now it was not a sign of something broken. It was a beautiful decoration, a river of frozen light running through the green glass. Grumblefoot slowly picked up his mirror. He turned it over in his old, tough claws. He looked into it. His reflection was no longer jagged and broken. Now it was framed by a stunning, glittering line of frost that made everything look magical and special. His face looked wiser, more wonderful. He didn't see broken anymore. He saw unique. He saw beautiful. He saw fixed in a way he never could have imagined. All thanks to a little snowflake who was different. Grumblefoot let out a deep, happy rumble that was the opposite of his sad sigh. It was a sound of pure joy and gratitude. He looked at the place where Frosty had been. Frosty was very small now, just a tiny shimmer on the rock. He had given most of himself to help the tortoise. But a wonderful thing was happening. Squeaky, the squirrel, had returned, bringing a piece of a cold, wet leaf to help Frosty cool down. Buzzy the bee had returned with her entire family, and they all fanned their wings together to create a cool breeze around the tiny snowflake. Grumblefoot carefully scooped up the shimmering remnant of Frosty and placed him in the shade of a giant fern, where the air was cool and moist. Frosty, who had felt so lonely and different, was now surrounded by friends. He had not become less different. The squirrel was still furry and loved dates. The bees still buzzed and loved pollen. The tortoise was still slow and loved his mirror. And Frosty was still a cold, crystalline snowflake. But their differences were not reasons to be alone. Their differences were the very reasons they could help each other. Squeaky's strong paws could dig holes. Buzzy's fast wings could carry messages. Grumblefoot's wise old mind could give advice. And Frosty's coolness could refresh and repair. Together they were a community. The oasis of Frost was not just a place of sand and water. It was a place where everyone, no matter how different, had a special gift to share. Frosty was not the odd one out. He was a vital part of the whole. He belonged. As the moon rose, casting a silvery, cool light over the oasis, Frosty felt whole again, resting among his friends. He had learned the greatest lesson of all, that the world is a beautiful tapestry woven from all different kinds of threads. A thread of fur, a thread of wing, a thread of shell, and a thread of ice. Alone, they are just single threads. But together, they make a masterpiece. It takes all sorts to make a world. And what shall we learn about in our next adventure? Will we learn about the different sounds of the rainforest? Or maybe the many shapes in a bustling city? Join us next time to find out. Moral core. It takes all sorts to make a world. And our differences are not weaknesses, but strengths that allow us to help one another and create a better community.